Welcome to our discussion on the current tensions between Iran and Israel. The relationship between these two nations has been a complex and contentious issue for decades, with the potential to escalate into a full-blown conflict. As Daniel de Petrus, an analyst with Defense Priorities, a Washington-based think tank, has stated, the Iranians are not stupid. They are not suicidal. This quote highlights the fact that Iran, despite its often aggressive rhetoric, is not likely to engage in behalf ire that would lead to its own destruction. A full-blown conflict between Iran and Israel would have disastrous consequences for both nations. Iran would suffer significant military and economic losses, and the country could face international isolation and sanctions. Israel, on the other hand, is already isolated and has many enemies in the region, making it vulnerable to attack. Moreover, a war with Iran would not be a quick and easy victory for Israel. Iran has a strong military and a large population that is willing to defend the country. A long and costly conflict would result in significant loss of life and resources for both nations. Daniel de Petrus, an analyst with Defense Priorities, has expressed skepticism about Netanyahu's desire for military action. He believes that Israel is well aware of the potential consequences of war with Iran and is unlikely to take such action unless absolutely necessary. Israel is becoming increasingly impatient with the status quo and perceives Iran's instability as both a promise and a peril. Israel is a small and already isolated nation with far more regional enemies than friends. As such, Israel sees Iran's instability as an opportunity to weaken a potential regional rival. Moreover, Netanyahu, Israel's prime minister, is facing growing domestic problems. His controversial anti-democratic judicial reforms and escalating violence in the West Bank have prompted a growing protest movement in Israel. A foreign confrontation could help alleviate Netanyahu's domestic problems, much like his counterparts in Tehran. However, as Daniel de Petrus has stated, Netanyahu is not likely to take military action unless absolutely necessary. While Israel is becoming increasingly impatient with the status quo, they are well aware of the potential consequences of war with Iran. Iran has been increasingly aggressive in the region and has developed significant military capabilities. They view themselves as a regional power and believe that they have a right to protect their interests. They also see Israel as an enemy and a threat to their national security. However, Iran has historically been a rational actor and has not engaged in suicidal behavior. They are unlikely to initiate military action unless they perceive it as necessary for their national security interests. As Daniel de Petrus has stated, the Iranians are not stupid or suicidal. They are well aware of the potential consequences of war and will not take such action lightly. Diplomacy is crucial in resolving the conflict between Iran and Israel and avoiding a full-blown war. However, as Aaron David Miller has stated, there are currently no prospects for diplomacy. This lack of diplomatic progress is concerning and leaves the possibility of war looming over the region. The need for a shared recognition of the near-certain ravages of war may ultimately help keep the peace, however tenuous and uneasy. It is essential to understand that war has disastrous consequences for both Iran and Israel and that diplomatic solutions must be pursued to avoid the worst-case scenario. In this video, we have discussed the current tensions between Iran and Israel, the potential consequences of a full-blown conflict, and the need for diplomacy to avoid war. We have highlighted the perspectives of both sides, Israel's impatience with the status quo, and Iran's motivations for military action. It is crucial to understand that war between Iran and Israel would be disastrous for both nations and the region as a whole. Israel is already isolated and has many enemies, and a full-blown conflict could prove just as disastrous for them as it would for Iran. While there are no prospects for diplomacy currently, it is essential to continue to pursue diplomatic solutions to the conflict. Only through dialogue and compromise can the conflict be resolved, and peace can be achieved in the region. We end with a cautionary quote from Aaron David Miller, who warns that somebody making a serious mistake could lead to war. It is important to remember that the possibility of war is always present and that we must do everything in our power to prevent it.